Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have for you my first quarter haul, and it's quite large. I'm gonna apologize already in advance. So let's go ahead and get started so this isn't super long. We'll see how that turns out. Alright, so this is in no particular order. They are kind of in an order, but not really. So we'll see what we get. First book on the stack is Firewalker, which is book 2 in the what is it called? The Stormwalker series by Allison James. And so Firewalker is about, well, I shouldn't tell you what this one's about. I'll tell you what the first one's about. So the first book is about a girl named Janet Begay, who is Indian, and she grew up on the reservation, and she left because she was basically destroying things with her powers. And Janet is what you call a stormwalker, and so she can control the storms basically. And in the first book you kind of find out like her origin and how she ended up where she is now. So in the first one you figure out that who her mom is, why her mom created her, because when you start the book all you know is that her father was charmed by this woman who he looked to as like a beautiful like goddess or an angel, and she disappeared after they slept together, and then she showed up 9 months later with a baby. So in the first book I know that you hear kind of Janet's backstory of how she met Mick. She was with him and she kind of fell in love with him because he was the only man who wasn't affected by her powers and she couldn't hurt him. And they were on the road together for I think a year or two, and then Mick just kind of disappeared and he never came back. Now Janet has just bought a hotel and moved to Magellan, New Mexico, and in this town very weird things happen. So it's kind of like if you've seen Buffy and you know like weird things are attracted to Sunnydale because it's a hellmouth. It's kind of like what happens in Magellan. All things weird and unusual tend to gravitate here, and especially to Janet's hotel. So that is basically what the Stormwalker series is about, and then book 2 kind of goes into Mick's backstory, and you kind of learn where he came from and who he really is, because in the first one you don't really get that. You know he's something different, but you don't exactly know what. So the next 3 books I have are all from the Offspring series. So you have book 3, book 4, and then book 7, I think this is book 7 or 8. Yes, book 7. So this one I know is about one of the twins, and then this one is about Eric and Fonda, and then this one's about Nicholas and Olivia. So basically the Offspring series is about a group of kids who their parents all died in mysterious accidents when they were very young, and they all ended up getting payouts, whether from insurance or their parents' work, because it was like a payoff for like an accident or something, and they never really paid any attention to it until one day this girl named Amy wakes up in the middle of the night in her apartment, and a man is there, and he tells her that he's known her most of her life and that she is in danger. Their parents weren't really killed by accident, and that Amy has powers and someone is watching her. And then the next book I have are a couple of manga I picked up. So the first one is Jealousy, which is volume 3 in the series. And Jealousy is about a guy who he ends up bumping into a mafia boss or yakuza boss, there you go. And this guy is used to getting whatever he wants, by any means necessary, even if that includes kind of selling himself and him and the boss kind of hit it off until he realizes that the mafia boss is married. And then the story kind of goes on from there. The guy's kind of weird. He has no real morals. He just kind of takes what he wants. So, and the mafia boss kind of makes him want to be a better person in a weird way. It's a very interesting story. I haven't read this one yet, so we'll see how it goes. And then the next one I have is also a volume 3 in a series. This is Coyote, and basically Coyote is about a guy named Coyote, and he meets a man who's a piano player in a bar, and they end up falling in love with each other. Little do they know that they're on two very different sides of a war between the Italian mafia and shifters. So there is that. And then I think this is the last manga here, and this is MADK, and this one was kind of a random pickup and is definitely outside of my comfort zone. It's basically about a guy who is into very kinky sex and he's very abnormal with his fantasy of what he wants. And so he makes a deal with a demon that the demon will fulfill his every desire, and in exchange, he will work for the demon. He'll sell his soul to the demon. What he doesn't realize is that the demon is going to turn him into a monster himself. So, it's interesting. I haven't actually read this. I did go through and kind of like skim it because I was kind of interested in what his like kink was. If it's so abnormal that you would sell your soul to a demon, I was wondering what it was. And it's not one that I've heard before. It's also, well, let me not say that. It is, but not in the average sense. I don't want to tell you because it's interesting. But yeah. Alright, so the next book I have is Sacrifice by Katie Robert. I actually have, where is it? If I can find it. Oh, it's looking right at me. Oh. So I actually have Sacrifice and Air by Katie Robert. That was the stack falling down, so excuse that. But I have Sacrifice and Air by Katie Robert, and these are both her novella series. I think it's like the I know a little bit, but I don't know a lot. I know this is about like reverse harem, and basically from what I can tell, this girl gets not sold, but she gets sent to live with this vampire, and then she ends up having like a relationship with him and his two friends. I think that's what this is. So yeah, I got the first book I bought myself, and then the second one I got because I'm in her Patreon. So we'll see how these go. They are very short and they seem pretty easy to read. So hopefully I'll like them. But yeah. And Katie Robert is definitely one of my authors that I kind of like pick up automatically. So I was excited about that. The next manga I have is Finder Volume 10. Finder is about this young journalist named Akihito, and he ends up trying to investigate this very infamous Asian mafia boss, and little does he know he's gonna end up falling in love with this mafia boss. This is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, manga series, so I love that. I had to pick this up. The next book I have is Underground Prince by Ketley Allison. This one I actually kind of just bought on a whim, so I don't know much about this one. I know it's Mafia, and it looks super long, but it's actually just shy of 400 pages. And I kind of bought it because it was on sale, and I wanted next day shipping, and this one offered next day shipping, and you have to like spend a certain amount to get it. Anyway, let's move on. I'll just read the synopsis. He is a poker king, a mafia prince, and royalty to women. A deliberate loner, he gives you his body but never his heart. Women find both his eyes and their sheets cold the next day. I'm hired as his new cocktail waitress, and my own losses allow me to see the real pain behind his sins. He's not what he appears to be, but fixing him is impossible. I should listen to my past and stay away. Instead, he lures me into his underworld, where vice and virtue thrive. No, where vice and fortune thrive. He's a wickedly hot, illegal addiction, dangerous, seductive, forbidden. I'm not just betting my heart on him, I'm wagering my life. So, if that doesn't kind of like cool you in, I don't know what does. So, and I'm kind of in a mafia reading kind of binge thing going on right now. So I picked this up. And then the next book I picked up was Captive, Volume 1, I think this is, of the Beautiful Monster series by Jex Lane. And this one I know is about vampires. But that's about it. So it says Matthew Callahan has spent 7 years struggling against the insatiable hunger for blood that consumes him. Unable to stop the vampire inside from preying on humans, he keeps himself confined to a lonely existence. Everything changes the night he is lured into a trap and taken prisoner by High Lord General Tark, seductive incubus who feeds off sexual energy. Forced into the middle of a war between vampires and incubi, Matthew is used as a weapon against his own kind. Although he's desperate for his freedom, he is unable to deny the burning desire drawing him to the incubus general he now calls master. So, I guess this is captor-captive romance, and it's also queer, so we'll see how that works out. Sounds good. I think this was the one I was looking for, like, gay books, I think. I was just kind of in the mood. That happens fairly often. So, I think I did start this, and I wasn't in love with the beginning, if I remember correctly. So, we'll see how it goes. Alright, so the next book I have is a very chunky, heavy A Court of Silver Flames. I'm not even going to try to explain this one because I'm sure a lot of people have done it better and have already done it, period. So, I picked this up. So the next book I picked up is The Dark Wife by S.E. Damer. And this is I know it's a sapphic YA Hades and Persephone retelling. So it says 3,000 years ago, a god told a lie. Now only a goddess can tell the truth. Persephone has everything a daughter of Zeus could want except for freedom. She lives on the green earth with her mother Demeter, growing up beneath the ever-watchful eyes of the gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus. But when Persephone meets the enigmatic Hades, she experiences something new. Choice. Zeus calls Hades Lord of the Dead as a joke. In truth, Hades is the goddess of the underworld and no friend of Zeus. She offers Persephone sanctuary in her land of the dead, so the young goddess may escape her Olympian destiny. But Persephone finds more than freedom in the underworld. She finds love in herself. So, yeah. I read a lot of mainly Hades and Persephone, but a lot of Greek retellings, period. So I thought, well, basically, I heard this was a sapphic one, which is why I picked it up. I didn't know it was YA, so we'll see. Because I don't generally gravitate towards YA, but I haven't heard many people talk about this, so I thought I'd try it. Okay, so the next book I picked up was The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, and basically I picked this up because I don't read a lot of like high epic fantasy, and also I heard there was romance in here and it's a good one, but other than that, I don't actually know what this is about. So, Yandar is an outcast from the barbarian north, but when her mother dies under mysterious circumstances, she is summoned to the majestic city of Sky. There, to her shock, Yen is named an heiress to the king, but the throne of the 100,000 kingdoms is not easily won, and Yen is thrust into a vicious power struggle. So, I really want to read this. Actually, I've wanted to read it for a while. I just never picked it up. I don't know why. So, I have that. Alright, and the next book I have is Kingdom of Shadow and Light by Kara Marie Moning. Now, I'll kind of explain the series because this is supposed to be the last one in this series. So basically, this is the Fever series, and it talks about Michaela Lane, who is from Georgia, and she gets a call from her sister that she doesn't get to answer because her phone ended up in the bottom of the pool, and the next day her sister is mysteriously murdered. The police in Dublin, because that's where her sister is, she goes to Dublin to go to college, and the police in Dublin have kind of run out of leads. They decide to close the case, so Mac decides she's going to go to Dublin and find her sister's murderer. And the story completely goes in a complete 180 from that. It does start off looking for her sister's murderer, and then it kind of becomes an overarching story about Mac finding out about who she is and what she is meant to be. So it's very, very good. A lot of people pick this up because of like a slow burn romance, but it's not. I don't really look for it for the romance because if I'm being honest, there's no. I'm looking over here because my books are over here. I don't think there's really any romance until maybe book 3 or 4 in the series, which is saying a lot because that's a lot of commitment. I will say though, the first book I ever read in this series was book 3. I kind of just picked it up. It was on a shelf in Walmart. It looked good. It sounded good. I picked it up. I read it, and then I was like, there's 2 books before this. Let me go back and read them. I actually never went back to read them until a while later, after I had already progressed more into the story. And so it's a very easy to understand story, and she does put like glossary and that kind of thing in it. But this is probably my favorite series of all time. I'm so sad. I know I'll probably cry when I read this, which is why I haven't read it yet. And I just kind of want to take a day and just sit there and read this whole book, but I don't have time right now. So there's that. Alright, so the next book I picked up was The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie by Jennifer Ashley. I picked this up hoping that it will get me back into a historical. I haven't properly read a historical romance it's been a few years, to be perfectly honest. And it's not because I don't, it's not because I don't dislike or I don't like historicals. It's more so because I feel like most historicals, I don't know, I guess the story kind of annoys me a little bit. So, but I know this is a lot of people's favorite, and so I'm hoping it will get me back into it. I also know it has I think autism rep in it. So it says, it was whispered all through London society that he was a murderer, that he spent his youth in an asylum and was not to be trusted, especially with a lady. Any woman caught in his presence was immediately ruined, yet Beth found herself inexorably drawn to the Scottish lord, whose hint of a brogue wrapped around her like silk and whose touch could draw her into a world of ecstasy. Despite his decadence and intimidating intelligence, she could see he needed help, her help, because suddenly the only thing that made sense to her was the madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie. So, I want to try it. We'll see how it works out. The next book I picked up was Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. I know this is a YA fantasy, and I don't really know much more than that. It says, in the Witchlands, some are born with a magical skill that sets them apart. Safia is a truth witch, able to tell truth from lie. It's a powerful magic that many would kill for, so Safi must hide her gift lest she be used as a political pawn. Isolde, a thread witch, sees the emotional ties that entangle the lives around her, but she cannot see her own. She is a cool, wary balance to Sophia's hot-headed impulsiveness. Sophia and Isolde just want to live their own lives, but war is coming to the Witchlands with the help of Prince Marek, a wind witch. The friends must fight emperors, soldiers, and a wicked blood witch, all who will stop at nothing to get their hands on a truth witch. So, I picked this up. I've heard mixed things about it. I heard people either really like it or they don't like it at all. So, I'm hoping I like it. We'll see. And it was only $4. So I won't be too mad if I don't love it. Keeping on with the fantasy train, I picked up Jade City by Fonda Lee. I know this one's about like family politics, and I think Jade gives them powers. It says, for centuries, honorable green bone warriors have used magical jade to enhance their abilities and defend the island of Kekin from foreign invasion. Now the war is over, and a new generation vies for control of Kekin's bustling capital city. 4 siblings of the powerful Kahl family must prepare for battle, and the fragile peace between the clans is about to break. So, it sounds really good. I've heard a lot of people really enjoy this. It is a thick book. It's actually not too bad. It's like 450 pages. It's like 490 something pages, so it's not too bad. I thought it was actually more pages than that because of how thick it is. Can you see that? So, we'll see. And then, I have Dark Wish by Clarissa Wilde. So, it says, I told him my deepest, darkest secret, and in turn, he made my wish come true. She's a shy girl, then one you'd never notice. But I did. I watched her, studied her, while she worked in the library, meticulously rearranging books as though she'd written them herself. I wanted her, so I made her an offer she couldn't refuse. Tell me your deepest, darkest wish, and I will make it come true. One whisper, one single wish, and I bought her soul. So, yeah. I'm not sure, because now that I'm reading that, it sounds like not a mafia book, but it might still be. But it also sounds a bit stalkerish. So, we shall see. So, these are not in order, and there's also some like holes in, even if they were in order, it would be like holes, because some of them I already owned. So, I'm just going to run through them. I'm not even going to tell you which ones they're about, because these are basically all Westmoreland books, but they're not the individual ones. I tried to get mostly the 2 books in one. So, some of these I've read, some of them I haven't read. I should probably tell you that it's a Westmoreland series by Brenda Jackson. So some of these I've read, some of them I haven't read. I read like a long time ago, but I had never picked them up. And so some of them I own, some of them I don't own, and I wanted to own them. So yeah, I'm just going to run through them. So the first one I picked up was Dreams of Forever, which has Seduction, Westmoreland Style, and Spencer's Forbidden Passion. The next one I picked up was Westmoreland's Way. That one was an individual one, by the way. So I tried to pick most of them up in like this format, but they weren't all in this format, so I had to pick some of them up like this. I think I only picked 2 up like this, actually, now that I'm saying that. So there's that. And then the next one I got was Memories for Eternity, which is Taming Clint Westmoreland and Cole's Red Hot Pursuit. By the way, if I read them, I'll tell you I read them. Which is actually not many of these. I actually haven't read most of these, so there's that. So the next one I picked up was Wrapped in Pleasure, and I have read most of these. It has Delaney's Desert Chic and Seduced by a Stranger. The next one I picked up was Ravished by Desire, which has A Little Dare and Thorn's Challenge, which I read both of these as well. And then, what's this one? Oh, this one doesn't have another name. Okay. So this one, it has Texas Wild and Beyond Temptation, which it might not have another name because I know Texas Wild is a Westmoreland book, but Beyond Temptation is actually a Steele book, which is another one of her series, which I've read some of the books in. Oh, by the way, if you see any moving behind me, it's not like a monster or something in there. So like my bed is made, but my dog kind of decided to do her own thing. So she's under the blanket. So if there's any moving behind me, because I can't see it, it's her. just just in case. So the next one I have is All for Love, which has What a Westmoreland Wants and A Wife for Westmoreland. So the next one I have is another Westmoreland Steelbook. So it has The Proposal and Solid Soul, which is a steelbook. And then this one, this one is Claim for Destiny, and it has Jared's Counterfeit Fiance and The Chase Is On, which I've also read both of these. Alright, so the last Brenda Jackson book that I have is Irrésistible Forces, which is neither a steel... No, is this a steel? Taylor's a steel, right? Yeah. So it's a steel book, but this is actually one of the first books I ever got on my Kindle, and I wanted to own it in print because it is a book that I really, really like, and it's fairly short and easy to read. I think it's only, I didn't even know it was 200 pages. It's 250 pages, and it's one of my favorites still. I really love this story, so I picked it up. Alright, so we made it through all the Brenda Jacksons. So let's keep going. Alright, so the next book I have is... I knew that was going to happen eventually. It's okay. It's okay. I don't know if I'll keep this part in, but that whole stack just fell. It's kind of sad. Anyway, so the next book I have is Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa, and I have already read this book. So this book is about a girl named Callie who did something bad when she was very young, and so she called on the Bargainer. Now the Bargainer is a dark fae king who tends to clean up people's messes for a deal. Usually it's a secret or something that he needs them to do. So he makes a deal with Callie that he'll clean up her mess. In an exchange for that first deal, he tells her she has to go on, she has to live her life, and he sends her to the school where she can just become like a normal person, but she realizes she can't let him go, and so she calls him again, and they keep making deals until she's procured a whole arm of beads and a bracelet, which each bead signifies a deal. And so after she gains all these beads, the bargainer, Desmond, he disappears, and she doesn't see him for 7 years. And when he reappears, he asks her to help him because there's something strange going on in the Fae world where these women are disappearing and then reappearing, but they're in a coma and they're holding on to these babies who are very much alive and moving, but they're behaving very oddly. So, I didn't even explain that Callie is also a siren. So this is kind of like their love story. It's kind of like a mystery / romance / I don't want to say thriller. It's not, well, kind of thrillery. But anyway, so yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I don't remember if I gave it 4 or 5 stars. So, yep. There's that, and then I also have book 2. Okay, so I can't find book 2, but I also own book 2, which would be in this haul, A Strange Hymn, and I have started it. I really can't find it, which is gonna bug me, but yeah, I gotta think about what I did with it, because I might have left it at work. So the next book I have is Music of the Night, by Angela J. Ford. Now this was like one of those Instagram ads. That's how I found this book, and it kind of like sucks you in, but also just because the cover is so pretty. Like, can you see that? It's really pretty. I know the hardcover one. I had already ordered the paperback before I saw the hardcover because she wasn't gonna do hardcovers at first, but the hardcover one, it's really, really pretty also. So this is supposed to be like a Phantom of the Opera retelling, I know a haunted tower, a mysterious instructor, and lure the music of the night. After the death of her father, Arya is left penniless and destitute. To avoid work in the streets, she becomes the ward of a count and moves to a remote town called Hightower. Hightower is a gloomy place with one vivid attraction, the theater. Lords and ladies come from afar to be seduced by a night of unforgettable entertainment. Many are warned to stay away from Hightower's dangerous enchantments, but it's a warning Arya is forced to ignore. Determined to take her life back into her hands, she and the Count make a deal. She can avoid an arranged marriage if she learns to sing for him. When Arya stumbles across a mysterious man in a dark tower, she begs to learn the power of song from him. Although reluctant, the man agrees to teach her the music of the night. Between midnight meetings and emotional singing lessons, Arya falls in love with her alluring instructor despite his shadowy past. But something deadly stirs, awoken by the desire of its master. Evening reveries become haunted with terror, blood, and murder. Rumors claim the man in the tower is behind the madness that haunts Hightower, a truth Arya is loath to believe, for she just gained the desire of her heart. What she doesn't know is that her haunted instructor intends to use her for his own purposes. So it just sounded really, really good, and I love Phantom of the Opera. So, and it's quite short actually, and the text in here is quite large. You can see it. So I don't think it'll take very long to read, and it's only a little over 200 pages. It's like 250-ish. Yeah, so not too bad. It's fairly short. So hopefully I like it, and I picked that up. And then I also picked up the first book in the Percy Jackson graphic novel series. Okay, so here's my reasoning behind this. I own Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, the first book. And I keep saying I'm going to read it, and I keep saying I'm going to read it, and I even got the audiobook, and I still haven't read it. And I thought to myself, okay, realistically, am I ever going to read this? I don't know. I even bought the illustrated edition. I don't even know where I put it. But I bought the illustrated edition before it was like crazy price. It was like $8 and I got it for my birthday. And I still haven't read it. So I thought if I pick up the graphic novel, I'll be more inclined to read it because it's not as much of a commitment, and hopefully that'll work out for me. I only picked up the first one. I was gonna get all 5, and then I was like, yeah, no. If you haven't read the book yet, why are you gonna do that? So I just picked up the first one, and hopefully I pick it up. I would assume most people know what Percy Jackson is about. You know, the boy, he finds out his father was Poseidon and that he's a demigod, and somebody has stolen Zeus's lightning bolt, and now Percy is being blamed for it, and he has to go and find it. So, yeah. So the next book I have is Captive of the Underworld by Leanne Yutan, and it is another Sapphic, Hades, and Persephone retelling. And I have already read this. This was, I think I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't a bad book, but it wasn't my favorite. Basically, Persephone has been very sheltered, and she also has been being abused by her mother Demeter, who blames her for her getting pregnant and then Zeus leaving her. So in return, she she abuses Persephone more verbally than physically, but she does do both. And she is refusing Persephone any freedom, even marriage. So Persephone ends up getting into a fight with Demeter, and Demeter tells her she doesn't want her anymore, and she kicks her out. And Persephone kind of runs away and ends up in a cave where Hades takes her down to the underworld and forces her to marry her and doesn't really give her a choice. So that's kind of the story. And then Persephone realizes how much she really does enjoy Hades and how much Hades really changed her life, basically. This story, it wasn't bad. I don't want to say it was bad because it wasn't. A 3 star is not bad by any means. I found myself, though, where there was very Like, it would be, oh, I got up today. Oh, I did this, this, and this today. And then I went to bed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I felt about this. Like, there were some very, like, spicy moments in it, don't get me wrong. And then there was, like, killing in this where, like, Hades decapitates some people. And those aren't in this. But I feel like it wasn't enough action. Like, there was a lot of talking and very little action. If that makes sense. So, although I did enjoy this, I didn't love it. So, but take my opinion with a grain of salt because somebody else might love this a lot more than I did. Oh my gosh. We reached the last, like, set of books. And this is all by the same author. These are all by Joey Hill. And they're all in the same series. And I've read all of them. And these are some of my favorite books, and I own them in ebook, but I wanted to own them in print. So these are all books in the Nature of Desire series by Joey Hill, which is one of my favorite BDSM books ever, or BDSM series. My favorite BDSM. You know what I'm saying. It includes BDSM that I really enjoyed. There's a lot of talk in here about what the right way to treat a sub is, what the wrong way to treat a sub is, which I really enjoy about this series. So the first one I have is Holding the Cards, and this is, I'll just read you a synopsis of these. I'm not even going to try it because I'm not good with it. So Lauren is a successful doctor with a healthy attitude towards sex, unashamed of her proclivities as a sexual dominant. She wants love and a family, but she's beginning to believe there is no Mr. Right willing to stand by her in sickness and health and be cuffed, stripped, and smacked with a riding crop. Then her friend Lisette invites her to spend a long weekend on a private island. It turns out Lisette can't come with her, but Lauren opts to go anyway. With no one for company but Joshua, the island caretaker, and his visiting friend Marcus. Though both men are beautiful, it is Joshua that catches Lauren's attention, and not just because Marcus prefers men. Something in Josh's stormy eyes called to her. When Marcus facilitates a game of submission and control between the three of them that will last throughout the weekend, Lauren embraces the opportunity. Josh overwhelms her with his willingness to submit to her body's desires, but her heart wants to get to the secret behind those eyes. She is going to have to tear down his defenses to make him give her everything, and this is one mistress who doesn't take no for an answer. So yeah, so Lauren is the dominant and Josh is the submissive, and then he also has a pet elephant, which is so cute. And it's interesting. It's a very interesting story because Josh is also, this doesn't really talk about him, but he's like a reclusive artist. There is that to this, and it's very short. This is the first book in the series, and also I think it's the shortest book in the series, if I remember. And there's like, I want to say there's like 13 books in the series, or something like that, something close to that. So, yeah. And then the next ones I have, there's a story behind this. So, let's start with this. So, I have two books. I have two of the same book, I should say, rather. So I have two of Ice Queen, and the reason I have two of this book is because I'm an idiot and I thought I was buying the second book, and I ended up picking up two of the same because this story actually takes place in two books. So I thought I was picking up this book, but I actually picked up the same book over again. Okay, just read this. So, they call her the Ice Queen. At the exclusive BDSM club known as The Zone, Mistress Marguerite is a legend. Tyler Winterman has been fascinated with her since he's known her. Though the rules of their world say they shouldn't share more than mutual admiration, he is her male counterpart, one of the most powerful male doms practicing at The Zone. Due to a computer error, Marguerite lacks the mentoring program stipulation required of all Zone doms, which includes spending a number of hours learning about BDSM from the submissive's perspective. Tyler considers it an act of fate that Marguerite chooses him to be the dom who helps her fulfill that requirement. He's convinced she is a switch, a closet submissive, but the truth will be even more remarkable than the theory, changing their lives in ways neither of them anticipated. Having no equal except one another in their skills at stripping a sub's defenses bare, these two dominants will turn their considerable talents on each other and discover that who is master and who is slave doesn't matter, not when two souls have found their mate. So, like I said, their story starts off in Ice Queen and continues in Mare of My Soul, where you actually find out even more about Marguerite's past and her family and where she really comes from. This one is more about their love story, and this one is more about figuring out who she is and how their dynamic together works. So, very good if you decide to pick these up. And then the last one is my favorite book in the series and possibly my favorite book of all time, but I'm not sure. It's one I've read a million times, and it is Rough Canvas. Now, this one is about Thomas, and it says when his father dies, Thomas is forced to abandon a burgeoning art career in New York. As difficult as it was to give up his lifelong dream, is nothing next to walking away from the man he loves. Marcus taught him to embrace who he is, a sexual submissive who demands the touch of only one master. But why would the sophisticated Marcus need some farm kid from the South? Then Marcus shows up and offers him a way to continue his art career and help his family. There's only one hitch. He asks Thomas to spend a week with him in the Berkshires. Thomas knows he should refuse, but he's never been able to say no to his master. This story is so good. I cry every time I read it. It is definitely one of my favorites, if not the favorite out of the whole series. Like I said, possibly my favorite book of all time. It just, so good. Alright guys, we have done it. We have reached the end of this haul. I don't even know how long I've been sitting here doing this. Thank you for sticking with me through this very long haul, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.